Journalist Michael Crick, who wrote a book about Nigel Farage a few years ago in 2022, one party after another, lays out and completely exposes Nigel Farage. This man shouldn't be in politics. His time maybe is up, and Farage really is a one man band. There's no democracy. And this is both a strength and an ultimate weakness for Farage. So let's get straight into the clip and talk about it.
The pressures of being a one-man band and a dictatorship, it must be enormous when you've got all the mental pressure, the physical pressure. You know, he's getting on a bit. He'll be 69 probably at the time of the next election. That is old for British politics.
Okay.
I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying, you know, perhaps a 1 in 3 chance it will happen because, and the thought of
He won't be 69, he'll be 66. So, yeah.
actually being in Downing Street and having to make all these impossible decisions and all the extra pressures, he may decide, actually, I want to go back and enjoy the high life.
The big political story today is about Keir Starmer, but that all flows, of course, from Makerfield, the by-election where Reform were seen as serious contenders to win. They had big plans in the local elections in the area just weeks before. They had huge gains, but in the end, they were trounced by Andy Burnham in that by-election. Well, writing in the Sunday Times today, the political commentator Michael Crick argues that the loss in Makerfield has exposed Reform's biggest problem, and that is its leader, Nigel Farage. Michael is with us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
How can Nigel Farage be both an asset and a liability? Just explain your thinking on that.
Well, he is an asset in terms of he's one of the greatest political communicators this country's ever known. But now he's sort of met his match in Andy Burnham, and the by-election was really Farage against Burnham. But the trouble is that Reform is a dictatorship. There's no democracy in Reform. And Farage has autocratic tendencies all the time. He wants to make all the decisions. He chose a really dreadful candidate in Rob Kenyon, whose background was exposed by Hope Not Hate and journalists and all the terrible things he said on social media. What happened to Reform's vetting process? We've been told they're always vetting candidates and so on. Well, clearly there was no vetting in this case. The second mistake is they should have dropped Kenyon. As soon as all this came out, there was time to do so before the close of nominations. But there are more problems than that.
No, he was vetted. They didn't care. They don't really care. A lot of the voter base, he still got, over 15,000 votes. He still did pretty well, 35% of the vote. But the idea that Farage is vetting candidates, and this was Farage's decision. He thought after the Gorton and Denton annihilation of Matt Goodwin, we have to go, Rob Kenyon would be the next option. He's a plumber, he's working class, he's local. But you do need media literacy. And as Michael says there, Farage is a one-man band. He is an effective communicator. He does come across to a lot of people as a relatable individual. And who else does in Reform UK? Z Yousaf is probably the best, but he's not good. Who else? Matt Goodwin? Suella Braverman? All, ex-Tories or pseudo-academics.
Relating to Farage, you've got the Christopher Harborne affair, and this whole mystery about the £5 million that the cryptocurrency millionaire Mr. Harborne gave as a gift to Nigel Farage just before he decided 2 years ago to come back and stand for Parliament, and with all the success that brought. That's being investigated by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner. But it doesn't look good. There's a question, has he received other big gifts? What do voters in a place like Makerfield, ordinary working class, poorly paid voters think, or maybe unemployed voters, think of suddenly Farage, a man of the people, getting a gift of £5 million? I mean, it's just it undermines his whole image. And I think the third problem, and
that is the biggest problem. Farage's cosplays as a working class, salt of the earth, going to help the working common man and woman, non-binary folk, get on in life. But when you're taking bungs for 5 million, who do you really work for? That's a big question mark. That's why Farage has been out of the media for 7 weeks now. He can't answer that question because the answers he's given so far are really inconsistent all over the place. And this is a big problem that ain't going away for Farage.
Is perhaps the most serious, is that once again, Farage's inability to get on with senior colleagues has come to bite him. And in this case, I'm talking about Rupert Lowe, who, of course, was elected 2 years ago as a Reform MP. He then fell out with Farage in a big way because he wanted tougher controls on migrants and mass deportations. Rupert Lowe suddenly found Elon Musk advocating saying that he would make a good leader of reform. There was a big bust up with Farage. The police were even brought in to investigate Mr. Lowe over allegations of bullying. That got nowhere. And of course, he went away and set up the Restore Party, who had an absolutely stonking result in Makerfield. They won nearly 7% of the vote, having never fought a parliamentary by-election before, with twice as many votes as the Conservatives, the Liberal Democrats and the Greens combined. And Rupert Lowe and Restore are not going away. And Farage came out on Friday and sort of...
I don't know about that. That is the big question. I think there's a real vendetta. There's an emotional... I think poor Rupert Lowe, he's hurt. His ego's hurt. He's clearly a very insecure individual that in an Alan Partridge-esque kind of psychodrama wants vengeance. And I think he'll get bored, but how much damage can he do? And how far can he push reform to the right? Because that's the next question Farage needs to answer. His £5 million bung, and does he want to push the party further to the right, or is he going to try and moderate it? That's the big one.
Plaintively said, what do you want?
Well, let's hear a little bit about him saying that. Let's hear that clip.
As for the Reform vote share, well, I thought we'd get 18,000 votes. We got just shy of 16, so I'm disappointed by that, no question about it. But I would say this, there's a couple of thousand voters there who would normally have gone out and voted Reform that voted Restore. And I would say directly to them, what do you want? We are the challenger party to the left in this country, and I would urge you to think again. I really, really would.
It's interesting he's saying that. I don't think I've heard him speak like that before. He hasn't had a challenge really from the right previously, although we know when it comes to people like Tommy Robinson, he doesn't like Tommy Robinson. He's never had him in any of his parties. He's been very clear on that. When it comes to Restore Britain and some of the things that Restore Britain are saying, how does he deal with that, especially when Farage's previous big rivals, of course, and indeed a party who he's taken a number of MPs from, are the Conservatives?
Yeah, I mean, he seems to be saying there, what to reform about? Well, I'll do whatever you want. It rather suggests he's willing to move and reform. He has moved reform further to the right in some respect in recent months already. Seems to be suggesting, I'm willing to give you what you want to reform, to restore voters, Rupert Lowe's voters. And
I think that's open to interpretation. Like, what do you want? Like, what can I give you to come over? I mean, like, I'm dog whistling here. I can't be extreme in my language in the way Rupert is, but, you know, we need to build a broad coalition here. Like, are you fucking idiots? He's basically saying. And they are. So they're not going to come over. They're not going to... And, yeah... This is bad for Farage and Rupert Lowe because they're not going to win, which is, good for everybody else.
But as you say, well, what are all the Conservatives who've defected, former Conservatives who've defected from their party to Reform, going to think about that? They'll be thinking, well, in that case, I'll become a Conservative again.
Well, just on that note, sorry to interrupt you, Michael, but just on that note, actually, is there a sense that because Reform has an opportunity because Farage has perhaps diluted the Reform message with Conservative people? We have Nadine Dorries, for example, running for a potentially mayoral position.
Yeah, there is a possibility you'll get people defecting back. I mean, what would, for instance, Danny Kruger or Tim Montgomery make of moving further to appeasing, basically, Restore? Farage has to do what he's always done before and said, look, We're not as these people are much more right wing than us, more extreme. They're extremists. We are not them, and we are, moderate right wingers really. And that's how he dealt with the BNP all those years ago.
But he can't do that anymore because a lot of his supporters are more radical. They are becoming more radicalized through online discourse. The Overton window's really shifted to the far right. And again, not to sound like a broken record, this has been Labour. They are a liberal party. They can't call out a genocide. So of course they're going to push the Overton window to the right. And everyone loses out. Because Farage, he isn't going to push back to the left, or well, more to the centre. He's going to, well, we don't know. Will he be able to do that?
And that actually has helped Farage over the years. Moving into restore territory is not a good idea. The other problem is that Farage is handicapped right now. He seems to be avoiding the media as much as he can. There was a time when Farage couldn't keep away from the microphones. Now, when he makes a statement like the one that we've just heard, he does it in the middle of an empty field in the middle of nowhere. And my view is that I would not be surprised if Farage actually steps down from the leadership.
Really?
Not immediately.
I mean, that would be an astonishing thing to happen. Surely he just waits to the general election, Michael.
I'm not saying straight away, but over some point over the next 3 years, he stood down from, he's led several parties, as you know. He stood down as leader 3 times before, twice as leader of UKIP, once as leader of the Brexit Party. And there was a real sense of being fed up and exasperated. The pressures of being a one-man band and a dictatorship, it must be enormous when you've got all the mental pressure, the physical pressure. He's getting on a bit. He'll be 69 probably at the time of the next election. That is old for British politics.
Okay.
I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying, perhaps a 1 in 3 chance it will happen because, and the thought of actually being in Downing Street and having to make all these impossible decisions and all the extra pressures, he may decide, actually, I want to go back and enjoy the high life and enjoy making...
Although show me the politician who doesn't want to be Prime Minister, Michael. Thank you very much. The political commentator, Michael Crick there.
Yeah, so that is the question, the big question of when is he going to address the elephant in the room, the £5 million bung? Like, what is going to happen with that? Is he going to be held accountable? He'd probably get away with it. But then the question is he going to push reform to the right? And then we're going to have a fragmentation. And I think it's a 1 in 3 chance in the next 3 years that Farage will stand down. He'll get sick and tired of it. He'll take his £5 million bung, and I think he'll be out of it. And then that's the question, who can replace him? I don't know. That's a big question mark. And either way, it's not looking good for Farage. And we should celebrate that. And that means we have to, as a Green Party, really, that means we need to mobilise around Geraldine Coggins in Manchester and beat reform. The more losers they get, the more the energy and momentum is undermined. And that's good for British democracy. That's good for everybody. So tell me your thoughts below. Thank you for all the members, and I'll see you in the next video.